Blunt Cuts is a podcast fueled by creativity, curiosity, and empowerment.
We cut through the daily mess of life. This is unfiltered honesty.
Park your passive at the door. This is Blunt Cuts. Welcome to Blunt Cuts. I'm CJ, and today we are in the studio with Ráessa Motala and Larissa Loden, two of my fave ladies, and we are going to talk all about burnout. So welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much for having us.
Hi.
Yeah.
I'm so excited you guys are here, and I think this is something that, for me, it's taken me a while to figure out what burnout is, and I'm not quite sure if I'm there yet. So I'd love to kind of start and talk about stories that you guys have experienced where you're like, oh yeah, that's burnout for sure.
Yeah, I was actually funny. I was thinking about all of my burnout stories. There's one that's recently been burned into my memory. Maybe I have PTSD from it still, and I'm working through it. Or maybe it's because I saw your baby, and then I was like, oh, yeah.
Oh, by the way, baby Esme's in the studio as well.
Yes. So. It probably was like, it was like this time last year, maybe a month or earlier, I had to go and do a trade show with my 4-week-old. So we had to get on a plane. And it just was like something that happened in my business. We have to do trade shows, and 2 had to be at the exact same time. And so in my mind, like when I was pregnant, they had always been opposite weekends. And so I was like, we can do this, and I'm going to train my staff to do this. But then I had to do it. And then also my brother was getting married, and this was all in upstate New York. Yeah. And so literally what happened was like everything's going to plan. So like, 5 a.m. flight to New York City, get in the taxi, go to the Javits Center, and we're just going to start setting up the booth. Like it's me and my husband and an employee. And literally we get into the booth, and one of the construction people comes by from Javits. They're like, you can't have a baby in here. And we're like, what do you mean? They're like, nobody can be on the show floor that's under 18. And I'm like, okay, how do I do this? And I literally just start crying in my booth.
I have shivers right now. Oh my God. What did you do?
So my husband was like, we would tag team it. So he would be in the lobby then. And so then he would text me when I had to run up and breastfeed her. But then it was terrible because my anxiety was so high. And if anybody knows, if you have a little one, they totally sense your emotions. And so there was one point where I was breastfeeding her, and I was just trying to problem solve all of this. And literally she threw up all of the breast milk all over me. I didn't have, and I just so I kept on.
They just know. They're like, you're stressed. I'm going to fuck this up even more.
Yeah. So then literally I was I have to keep going. So I just kept, wiped the breast milk puke off of me. And then I kept on setting up the booth. And but it wasn't even done. And so I just.
For context,
yeah.
What color shirt were you wearing?
Oh, it's always black.
Oh.
Yeah.
And it's always white.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And I just didn't give 2 shits anymore. And I just was like, this is it. And we just kind of powered through. And literally I just when we finally went and checked into the hotel, I just kind of sat there and cried. And it was, yeah. And we kind of just got through it. But it's this moment of I think burnout is one of those things where it's you can try, you can't plan it. It just kind of happens. And it's usually when something goes so out of my control, and I just don't even know how to comprehend anymore. So, yeah. Well,
and I think one of those things is that those show floors are so busy, and buyers are running around anyway. So nobody knows that you're going through this, but it's so hard in that time to mentally pull it together and be like, I'm not covered in breast milk. Neiman Marcus, would you like these earrings?
Yeah. And then it's just and then it's you have to then game plan and be you have to be available for buyers the next day and happy and chipper, and that's exhausting on its own. When you're trying to sell your soul to people for 9 hours after the day, be why? Yeah. So yeah, it took me a lot of espresso and so much to try to get through that and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, burnout moments like that, you're it just piles on and piles on and piles on, and eventually tears come. How about you, Ráessa?
Okay, so I don't have kids, so I don't feel like this is relevant.
Well, I mean, burnout
Burnout, yeah.
For
no.
us right now, because we're in the thick of like
Yeah.
baby mode.
But yeah, I've had so much burnout though before.
Before.
Like kids. Yeah, it's called the holiday season. So.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
So for me, that's just called my family. Okay. No, so I think the last time that I can very clearly remember was a couple months ago. I had back-to-back weeks of travel for work, and I'm talking like 2-3 day trips that break up your week. So I'm like going on 5 weeks of not full work weeks, but this is getting on planes, getting off planes, client meetings, setting all this up in addition to all the work that I already have on my plate. So it's like an added thing that I don't really need to deal with. And it was something out of my control, is weather related. So my one flight got delayed for weather, and I ended up getting stuck for 2 days, 2.5 days in Denver without a laptop charger. It stopped working.
Did you sneak into the Apple store?
No, so they had like shut down, the airport shut down, everything was shut down because of weather. So like my charger stopped working the minute I found I'm sitting in the airport, they're shutting down the airport, there are no hotels because everyone's scrambling to get hotels. So when you do find one, it's like a fortune. And I finally get there, I sit down, I plug in my computer, and it just goes, like it just died. And I'm like, I need to rebook a flight. I need to reschedule meetings. And my phone's about to die too. And I can't find my phone charger. And I'm just like, what is happening? So I finally figured, like, I powered through it. I got home. And I'm like, see, that wasn't so bad. I'm good. I'm really, really good. Well, I don't know what happened at some point, but I went straight into like 2 weeks of events for work and just board commitments and all these things. And the end of the second week of the event, I was like, I have this together. I'm kicking ass. Like, this is awesome. I came back from that horrible trip. I'm walking out of a building into a parking lot. I trip and fall in my heels. I go face first on the concrete. I roll over. I'm laying there and I just start crying. And I'm laying in the middle of a parking ramp on my back, just bawling. And it's like 10 o'clock, no one's around, and I'm like, why? What did I do?
What did I do, world? Oh no.
And I think it all just crashed down. Like everything just crashed down around me.
No, event season. Like I think for creatives in general, you know, whether that's award submitting season or buyer season for makers or, you know, on the styling end and community involvement, just attending events, like you just get into a mode where you're like, go, 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 go. I got this. Like when time management is so tight, it feels like, I don't know what anyone talks about. What's burnout? I got this. And then it hits you in the most unexpected times with the breast milk all over you, or like when you're laying on concrete crying and you're like, wow.
It's about to run over
Yeah.
me.
This is
Casual. This sounds great, actually.
This is how it ends. Yeah, I mean, I think burnout manifests so surprisingly, and it hits you, and it just is there. And then for me, it comes into, okay, I can't do anything now. Like what? And I have so many obligations, and what and how do I conquer that and get stuff done? And sometimes it's just like that thing isn't getting done and it's gonna stop for a bit. So for me, burnout is like an absolute stop in my tracks. And it takes a lot to get me there.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And then it always fucking surprises me when it shows up, because I'm like, God, I thought I had tools to work my way through this.
Thing though, it's like for me, I get up in the morning and I'm like, I just need to get through this day. And then tomorrow I'm like, I just need to get through this day. And I just need to get through this next day. Mm-hmm. And that's how it starts adding up, because you're pushing. And you're like, I got this. I figured it out. But what I really, really hate is this culture of almost like idolizing it. You know, true. It's like, oh, I only need like 3 hours of sleep. And I'm like, well, fuck you, because I want like 12. Like, you know, and you're doing so much. That's so cool. I hate that. I hate when people are like, oh my God, you do so great. Everything. I'm like, you do it. You do it.
Yeah.
Like, let me know how it works for you.
Yeah, I think we're an entire room of overcommitters and yes
Yeah.
girls, and that's part of, I don't say no very often, and it's a power word, and it does help alleviate burnout when I do use the word no.
I know. It's one of those things too. It's like you don't want to let anyone down, and especially I think it's like you don't almost like honestly want to let yourself down. Like I think in your mind you're like, I can do this. Like I'm just gonna do X and then Y and then Z, and then all of a sudden you're just like you just hit this like wall where you stop dead in your tracks, and then you're like. And it's kind of the worst then because you've overcommitted, and then you're literally like just kind of in this panic mode where you're like, I just can't do it anymore.
Yeah, like what do you do? And then you feel like an asshole. 'Cause
Yeah.
You're like, oh, that didn't get done today.
Yep. Yeah.
And then it manifests my anxiety even more.
No, and then
my
it's like the
God.
reverse of it because then you stop dead in your tracks and you can't do anything. And then you think of all the stuff that you need to be doing that you're not doing. And then you're just like way far behind. And then it's like, it just like is a domino effect.
All this time that I could have been doing it, but I'm thinking about what I didn't do.
Oh,
Why?
God.
So Larissa and I are in a business women's circle together, and this past, when is it? Tuesday, our group collectively diagnosed me as
I love that.
Oh.
as
And I was
having-
doing too much, and I was literally like, I can't show up. So I was like, that was one of my no days. I was like, I had to make a choice, and I was like, so I texted Reese, and I was like, girl, like, I was like, what was the agenda? And she's like, just miss it. I was like, okay, like, I'm so
you
behind.
Have to. I'm like, I'll fill you in. Yeah, I'm filling you in part of it.
Yeah.
I got group diagnosed, and I was prescribed this book called Disease to Please. I have people-pleasing syndrome by not being able to say no. I mean, granted, this is not a room of medical professionals, by the way, but they're just
Isn't
as
that
good.
just women, though? I just
Because-
feel like like every female I meet, I just feel like is like trying to please people in one way or another.
And maybe not so much pleasing people, but you just want to you want to help. You want to help others.
Yeah.
You want to give others the best you can. And I have friends who will always tell me, yeah, you always want to give the best of yourself, but then when others don't reciprocate, you're like, oh, it's fine. But internally, you're like, oh my God, why? I need one thing from you. Step up.
Yeah, and I think it's so hard because you want to give everybody the same 100%, but in reality, you know that something's suffering.
Yeah.
You know, something somewhere, it's a relationship, or it's one gig versus the other, or it's family, or,
Or all of those things.
Yeah.
Or it's yourself, which
Yeah.
I've been, seeing that trend. There were a lot of speakers during Fashion Week that were like, oh, you got to really carve out time for yourself. It's like, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah.
Can you give me the tools and the...
Because the time for myself, like my cup gets filled helping other people.
Yeah.
So I love working on, side pro bono business brands or whatever I'm doing. Like that to me fills my cup.
Yeah.
So I'm like, but is that self-care in my brain, or do I actually need to stop the thing so that I don't know. Because to me, getting a manicure, if it takes longer than 30 minutes, causes me so much anxiety.
And I would feel like, and that's the thing where it's like, I think it's like the different types of like the self-care has just been so much like this idea of like self-care and
Yeah,
spa.
because some
or, like,
Pinterest board of a spa thing that stresses me the fuck out.
No, and I think that's where it's like for me, it's like learning like that's not my self-care. It's more just like honestly like going out like to a brunch with like like lady friends or something like that. Like that to me, like just something so different that I don't carve out time for. That I need to carve out more time for. And that's what I'm learning. It's like like I agree. Like going to spa day, like yoga is not helpful for me as a human. Like I get like the
This
stretching.
is a workout for me.
I know the stretching is good, but then it's like they're like, okay, and now like silence your brain. And whenever they're like silence your brain, like literally my brain goes into overdrive, and it's like I cannot like, why did you say silence your brain? Now I can only think about all the things I need to do and how I can't silence this brain. So
I'm the queen of making like to-do list on my ceiling at night when I climb into bed. Like that is like I resent that moment of getting into bed because I just know I'm gonna be 1, 2, 3.
Totally. I'm a list maker too. Like I have the journal next to like, and insomnia for like ever was a very real thing. And I eventually just started taking like sleeping meds because.
Absolutely. It's a real issue. And for me, my personal life suffers. Well, first I suffer, my personal life suffers, and then my work does. And it usually goes in that order because in my head, I'm like, if I have to make sacrifices, where should I be making sacrifices that are least effective or intrusive? And it's always, for some reason, I always land on myself. And I'm I feel like it should be the opposite.
It doesn't even make my list, which, but for me, I feel like I'm so happy in the things that I'm doing and I'm doing.
Yeah.
I don't go to work and be like, oh, it's a job.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not really great at Mondays, let's be honest.
Nobody
just
is.
I'm more of an introvert. And when I get back around a full office full of people, I'm like, oh, like I just need a minute. It's a lot of humans.
You guys are all here again, huh?
I'm like, oh, everybody's here today, huh? Yeah. So for me, it's more of that, like, oh, I just had my little family unit over the weekend and I was able to be dormant and now I'm like back in it. So those are those adjustment periods for me that are harder. But
yeah, it is funny. So I have this thing I call pumpkin phase, where literally like once the time goes past 10 p.m., like I just slowly start shutting down. Like I'm not talkative anymore, and I just kind of stare off in the distances, and all I do is start thinking about beds and everything. Like I've also though literally like I totally fallen asleep with like laptops on my laps and everything like that.
Do you think it's because of like how much your day?
I do. I mean, I give like 110%, like nonstop all day. Like I'm just like jacked all day long, kind of a little bit. And then it's like my body just literally is like, we're running on no fuel, or so like you have nothing left.
I put myself in bed by 10. It's just my clock usually has like not 4 digits, 3 digits in it by the time I'm like actually asleep. So I started wearing my watch, my Apple Watch, to see like how quality of sleep I actually get, and it's even worse than I thought. So that's fun. Do a little self-sleep analysis, and I'm trying to figure it out. But it's like I give 110 all day long in so many different spaces. From in the morning, I'll do something of side work, get the kids ready for school, all 3 of them. Then I'll commute, which is nice because that's my like self-cry time or check-in with my mom time. And then there's full work day, a billion clients, like managing all the accounts, getting home, sports, kids, dinner, plus then any side work that I'm like, oh, I really wanted to still accomplish this today.
Yep.
And then I'm like, okay, ready for bed. And then I get in bed. I'm like, checklist, this, that, this. So then melatonin, I'm like, I have to, like, I can't. I just need to shut down. So that has helped. Like melatonin has helped me, like, just turn it off. And I don't know where burnout, fits into that. I think it's like a daily, like, where are those pivot points of like in your day that are checking up to a good burnout? Because for me, it takes, I don't recognize it nearly enough in my day to day. And then I have these huge explosive like shutdown moments quarterly or something. Like I don't even know. I haven't mapped them because I like to just delete that part.
That's we all want to forget about that worst day we had. But I mean I think so for me I've tried the melatonin. I get groggy and I feel worse in the morning. But if I have to like look back when I was in grad school, I could sleep at any given point. And so I was popping caffeine pills, super healthy. And now I'm like, how do I go to bed? But I can feel as like time goes on, progressively feeling or picking up on small signs of burnout during the day, but I'm pushing it out of my mind.
Yeah, what are those small things that pop up for you?
Yeah, I think it's just more like that anxiety feeling or that overwhelming feeling. And like there are so many things going on in my head. Sometimes there are voices telling me, hey, hi. Like they all have different personalities. I sound crazy now.
No, we talked about
this close to naming them.
Episode. You should.
Fred and Julie are not getting along.
Differentiate from the demons.
But I think it's just I don't recognize that I'm heading towards burnout necessarily, or I'm heading towards what I call having like a full frontal explosion. I'm just seeing it as, well, it's just this one thing that's stressing me out. And if I get through it or I get over it, I'm totally going to be fine. And it's just going to go and it's going to work. And then if I make it by some miracle to the gym, I'm sitting there working out, but I'm like thinking about everything I could be doing in that moment instead of the 40-minute gym class I'm at.
This is when I stopped working out. And I don't work out anymore. And I think like I want so hard to get that back into my routine. And I know everybody's like, just do it. But I can't spend 30 minutes doing like, it drives me insane because I'm like, I could be doing so many other things, or I have this long list of.
Well, like you said, it's going back to the whole manicure thing. I'm like, if I can't be like typing on my phone or on my computer while I am doing something quote unquote for myself, it's not worth it in my mind. It's like, well, I'm not going to, so I'll go get a pedicure because I can whip out my laptop and get through a shit ton of emails because I can't walk anywhere. But in my mind, I'm going, why am I doing this right now? Like, I need to be here, or I could be there, or I feel guilty.
Yeah,
like,
I
so
think there is
doing
a lot of that
myself.
attachment to guilt and anxiety and where and why we do that to ourselves. And I'm not quite certain why I do it to myself either. But I've learned one of those things to help me recognize like burnout is to turn off my devices. Like I'm starting to give myself a curfew just like my kids. Like I'm turning my phone off and like just I don't want to.
How do you follow through with that? Because I tried that.
Because I have kids that are like looking at me, that helps.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I did start doing it too. And it was weird though
because it's always gonna be there.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like when I was pregnant and I was waking up to like go nighttime pee because that's a very real thing. And then I would like look at my phone and like every now and then it would be something that would like piss me off or something like that. And then I'd be awake. You
take
like,
that energy.
Yeah. And then I just kind of realized like, you know, and or if it was something that I looked at something that was like before I went to sleep, it would keep me wired. And so I do set like. You can set the settings on your phone.
Oh, I have them. I just choose to bypass them and ignore them.
No, I mean,
like,
in there,
let me in.
There are times that like this has been a bad week for me, like self-consuming back on social media at home too, because it's like, oh, we were just at this event and all the fun things, and I want to like keep it alive because there, you know, it brings me joy, and so But there's such a thing about that too. You're like, oh my gosh, this looks awesome on social media, but internally you're like, I'm so tired. Yeah, no, totally. So that's one thing I'm going to try to work on is being a little bit more diligent of being off computer, off device, like because as creatives, I think I need to give my brain some time to come up with some ideas. And it comes up with great ideas right now, but they're researched and thought out, and like that's how I'm being creative right now, and I'm looking for that flow a little differently, and maybe it'll be elevated, maybe it won't, but I gotta try to get off the screens. Well, and it's a personal thing, right? Like, so for me, I don't want to deal with quiet time because that causes me more anxiety. So people that see my life are like, how the hell? Like, I'm like, because I just go, I don't stop. That for me, that is peaceful. Chaos is a little bit peaceful, and I see as I'm aging like that shift a little bit, and I do find enjoyment on a nature walk, or I am starting to find those moments of pockets of peace joy, but for chaos joy has been like my life, and but people that like find peace in that don't try to cross over to some other personality type and be like crazy busy. That's not okay. Don't do that. For almost 3 years, okay, granted I have a lot of works, so it's kind of like cheating, but I've been at BI as a full-time creative director now almost 3 years, 3 years in December. I do not have my work email on my phone.
Wow. I mean,
it's huge. It was a huge move for me, but I have blunt cuts email, I have my styling email, I still have all that stuff coming through, so plenty of things happen on my phone per day. But I deliberately, when I took this job, said, is it a requirement for me to have email on my phone? And they said no. So I was like, okay, then I will check in the mornings and I will check at night before I go to bed, but I will not be glued to it because I've done that too many times at too many different jobs, too many different agencies and places where I never left work. It made for not a great manager. It made for like all the things that I need to be able to come back fresh to a day. I also need to not show my team that they need to check their email all the time either. So if I have these office hours, that encourages other people to like leave work. like we are, I mean, at least in my role, we're creating amazing campaigns for beautiful companies that want to like do good in the world, and our work is important, but all of the people working on that work are more important than like the creative campaign. So at some point we just need to be more diligent in our planning and our like daily efforts, but it can, that has opened a whole new door. And it, like I said, it's very new. It's only 2.5 years, but like not having that, huge move. I travel. I have a lot of people that email me while I'm not in the office.
Okay, you win today.
But
I think that's
it just
true,
was
though.
like limits and boundaries
Yeah.
and coming. And
Yeah.
it was good because it was a transition in my life where I could come into this job and say in my interview, here's what I want, take me or leave me, but I'm not putting it on my phone.
And I think that's like, it's knowledge and history. It's like, you know, none of us like want to continue to have burnout. Like that's not the idea, but it's learning like what your threshold is and then learning what are your options the next time around. Because a lot of the times like the burnout comes because of something unplanned, like something happens that, you know, kind of just throws you off the rails. And like, I would say that's true. It's like, you know, as I continue to grow as a human and as like a business and everything, it's like then starting to learn like, okay, this didn't go well. So next time around, I'm going to like make sure my team is doing this or whatever. So that way I don't have to do that anymore, because that's really where I think it's, you're going to have burnout. I think that's the thing is like, but then the next time around, don't make the same mistake again. And then that's how you're going to get through it.
Yeah, an email and refresh, it just perpetuates that thought of like,
for sure.
oh, I need to be busy. I'm failing. I'm not there for someone if I'm not on there. But like, yeah, I've told salespeople in my organization, like, I don't have my email on my phone, and they laugh. Like, they think I'm kidding. And I'm like, but no, I'm not kidding. So text me if you need anything. And like, when I said that, I get very few texts. But I know then those are the ones that matter and that I have to pull away from my personal time to do.
Right.
So I don't know, baby steps.
Yeah.
But it's
I should try it. I mean, I think for me it's more like that anxiety of the unknown, and different situations, different client projects call for different, I guess, level of need of my time. But at the same time, it comes down to, it's a personal thing where you have to figure out and make time for yourself, because you're going to make that same mistake and hit that same burnout. So like I've like a long time ago accepted the fact that I'm going to bring my work home, and that's like, for me, I'm like, that's okay. Like I don't have like little ones dependent on me, or that where I feel like, you know, I would be doing a horrible thing by constantly sitting on my laptop. So I think whether it's right or wrong, because I didn't want to bring work home and then feel guilty about it. So when I accepted that, then I feel like it made it worse, because now I'm like, well, now you're accepting that you're working all the time. And that's burnout then too. So it's like finding that middle ground.
well, and you'd be surprised how many huge clients like understand that perspective of, I'm gonna hit you up in the morning. Like, they don't need an 11 p.m. email. They're probably not checking it till 11 a.m. Like, you know, and it's just a new way of work style that I think kind of going back to how, like, our parents worked. Like, no one had email on there. We didn't have,
sounded like an amazing time. Right? It really did.
Like,
No. Let's not start. Let's go back to the way it used to be. Let's
pretend,
not start that.
No, pretend it's a flip phone for just a hot second.
Yeah.
When you have, you know.
Let's bring back the Motorola's.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was a time in life where I knew that was one thing that I could change.
Yeah. I think one thing that helped me a ton too is like, you know, obviously like hiring out people to help you out on things, but accepting the fact that they might not do it the same exact way as you, but you will get the same end result. And when you can,
Oh, I'm awful at that.
I know
Yeah.
it's super.
a control freak.
Oh no, but it's
Michaela's
like,
laughing. She's like,
yeah, but it's like I've learned to. I mean, I'm not great at, but I do like kind of recite that a lot in my mind, because I'm like, you know, they won't do it exactly how you were gonna do it, but if the end result is the same, does it super matter? And it's helped me a lot. Or maybe they improve upon
actually
it.
Gets out before 3 weeks go by. Like,
Yeah.
whoa, weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It'll happen.
There are those things where, like, being able to relinquish control on pieces that can get done and have
Being a
realize you have
perfectionist
capable
is not
teammates.
easy.
It isn't.
Yeah. I mean, but it's like I was like listening to a different podcast, and I think it was really talking about like, so you're gonna have burnout, and a lot of it is like we're saying like you just need like, you know, a little bit of personal time, whatever that is. So like what can you outsource from your life, you know? And it's like I have somebody that cleans my house, and that's like been huge for me because I hate cleaning my house, you know. But it's like those are the types of things like what can you outsource from your life that you maybe suck at or don't enjoy that give you that little bit of
Grocery
you know
delivery.
yeah, you know,
Oh
like
my
all of those
God.
things.
Oh yeah, that helps.
That
I mean,
thing
or
is
even pickup.
amazing.
Yeah.
Like
Being
pickup.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just like such a mindless task, right?
Yeah.
And it's like someone else is gonna pick up the same things that I'm going to in the store. So.
Oh, I know. It was I do it too, and it was funny. My family was visiting me, and they're like, they were like, "You're so lazy." I was like, "No, I'm so efficient.
Yeah.
Like, look
Yeah.
at this. Like, I'm not wandering the store putting mindless stuff in my cart that I don't need, and then
I
it's
will
getting
pick
dropped
up
off.
stuff I
yeah,
don't need.
and now it's getting dropped off at my doorstep. Like, I'm like, thank you, future. I've just saved time. Where's my self-driving car?
Right.
Right.
That convenience factor.
helps so much.
Yeah.
That convenience factor helps, but at the same time, you're like, I can take care of things I actually need to for my business or from my family or for myself right now in the time that it took me to grocery shop or do laundry or clean the house. And so that one I'm all for. Usually I translate it to, well, I can get this much work done in that time. So maybe I should focus more like the manicure aspect of it. But it's...
Or the walk. I think we also
the walk.
manicures. Yeah.
I think it's a good time to just kind of share that big lesson learned. And I don't know. I mean, we definitely went around a lot today in talking about this. But what's one thing that you could pass on to somebody to recognize burnout in their lives?
I would say it's like, I think you kind of know when it's coming. Like, you can feel the anxiety coming up in you, and tasking somebody like with the whole bucket list of things like, hi, I need my house cleaned and my grocery list done, and please pick up my kids or whatever. Like, you know, just so that way you can still do all those things that you truly love to do because you want it. Because the thing is, at the end of the day, we all want to do them. So, you know, maybe it's like just for that time when you're close to burnout is, you know, just telling somebody like, I will pay you X amount just so that I can get through this and do all of those things, you know?
The fuck if I knew.
Yeah.
So for me personally, I tend to be a little bit more of an organized human, or I try to. So I'm big into color-coded lists and syncing and schedules and things like that. I've tried to like write down everything when I start feeling extremely overwhelmed, even though it's already written down. But when I feel like my anxiety is rising, the things that I write down are the things that are clearly bothering me. And it's easier for me to sort through that to understand what is truly a priority and what isn't. And whether it gets done or not is irrelevant, but it helps me like recognize where that stress is coming from and where that feeling of, you know, hopelessness is like pushing me towards the edge. So I think that for me is one thing that I've recognized to do. The other thing is just, even though I'm not great at following through on it, I try to listen to what my body's saying. Mm-hmm. Like, you feel it, like whether it's like tingly or like heaving breaths or laying on a parking ramp, like sobbing, you know, and
or being short with other people.
yes.
Like, that's my thing. I realize I'm near a burnout because I genuinely like to connect with a human and like be there in the moment.
I get snappy.
And if I'm like deleting you and just thinking about what's in my head, and not even hearing or listening to the conversation, I know I'm close. So I have to recognize those moments in my life too.
So it's things like that, but every so often, you know what? It's not bad just to cry it out. Like, you actually feel kind of better. I do. I feel like after that really good cry, like every like 3 to 4 months, it's like maybe we need to schedule those. That's totally, it needs to be a thing. Like, just
scheduled her cry.
like sit in a corner and just like sob and be like, okay, I feel better. But I do.
Guys,
like
December 23rd.
So I mean,
on the calendar.
Do you want to do this together? Like, I'll bring ice cream.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's recognizing that it's okay. It's like, it's okay to have those moments. You're not any less, you know, powerful or you're not any less, you're vulnerable, and that's okay. Like, it's not a bad thing. You don't have to feel like it's wrong or weak or you're not self-sufficient as a person. Like, we're humans and we're going to crash and burn. So cry it out if you need to cry it out. I don't know.
Totally.
I'm sure my neighbors have heard me.
Yeah. Cry it out, let your body, listen to your body more and recognize that. I think for me, on top of the boundaries and the email, which was like a huge thing, like huge, monumental. Like, I don't like slacking. So to me, it felt like slacking.
Mm-hmm.
But it was huge, and it's been great to at least have that thing off my list. But the other big tip I have is to start every day with 3 things, like 3 intentions, and only 3. And my list is always 50, 60 things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But 3. What 3 things am I going to accomplish today? And then if I can check through, okay, I got 1, but, I didn't get these other 2, they move along. But never putting more than 3 solid things that may they be grocery shopping or coming up for a vision, like a women's summit. Like, whatever they may be. Like, they may be huge, they may be small, but, like, 3 things.
Brushing your teeth. Make sure that's on there.
Check.
Yeah.
Shower. Okay, not maybe the shower.
Wherever they may be in there, but 3 things. And then I can look at the day and be like, wow, I got my 3 things. This is great. Like, what and how, and not having this daunting list.
There's a sense of satisfaction for, like, crossing things off the list, and you feel so great. You're like, I'm a badass.
5 is too many. 50 is absolutely fucking too many, but why do,
And 3 in a year, you've done more than 1,000. So, whoa,
that was quick math. Holy crap!
Like, run a business.
You are so impressive, a girl crushing so hard right now.
It's because it's morning and it's not 10 p.m. So if it was 10 p.m., I'd be like 3 times 3.
How many days in the year?
Yeah.
Lunar calendar.
Thank you guys.
People can
the
find
gram.
People can find Larissa Loden on Instagram. It's Larissa Loden, and then right on our website, which is larissaloden.com.
Yes, I am on Instagram at Ráessa M, and I have a website, RaessaMotala.com. Can you believe I scored that domain?
No, not at all.
What are the chances?
Yeah. I thought you were gonna always have to do the Ráessa Motala at.
I couldn't get the Ráessa Motala on Instagram or Gmail. So there is another one of me somewhere out there in the world.
There's only one of you.
Oh, you guys.
Let's continue that conversation on the gram.
Yeah.
You can find us at Blunt Cuts Podcast.